Hello, everyone. I hope this video finds you doing well. There's been something that's been brought to my attention. It's called soul ties. I looked up this piece of information and I found it quite interesting. And I found out that this is most popular around with the Generation Z. Um, so, first of all, I want to state that no matter how much of a loving parent a parent might be, no matter how perfect the family situation might be, no matter the compassion the family has, all these things doesn't matter. No matter how much love there may be in the family, there is absolutely no such thing as a perfect parent. There never has been, there never will be until the life to come. But in this life, there will be no perfect parent. What parenting is having information and doing the best with that information that you have. That's parenting. And no one, no matter how rich, how loving, or anything else that they may be, gets it right all the time. Sometimes it's because that our parents, no matter how loving that they may be, that they didn't get it right and they taught us something that wasn't necessarily true. And that's okay. We're people. We make mistakes. It's what we do. I've made my share. God knows I've made my share. I have never been a perfect uncle. Well, actually, probably far from it. I've never been the perfect person. And I'm willing to point that finger at me that I have not been perfect. I won't be perfect until the life to come. And I know it. But sometimes when we find out that we haven't been doing things the way we should, then maybe sometimes that we should be taking a look at, hey, maybe things do need to change. And that's okay. We get new information and we make that change. And then that's what gets us closer to God. That's what allows us to be more loving and caring people, is because we was willing to make that change with the new information that we have. And that's a part of personal growth. And that's okay. When we become adults, then we do have to, then all children, when we become adults, we have to take responsibility for our own lives. Say, okay, my mom and dad wasn't the perfect people, but they did the best they could. Here's where they messed up. Here's where I don't want to mess up. And here's where that what I have learned through my life and I've been growing. And this is just the natural process of life. Nothing to be taken personal unless the parent is just straight out abusive, which in most cases, I don't think that that's the case. There has been abuse in the families in the past. I'm sure there are some now. But I'm just not going to, I refuse to condemn all parents just based on some parents. And it's not my job to point at people and say, you're this kind of parent or you're not that. My job is just to give you some insight into what I know to be true and to inform people, to love people, and to care about people and understand that no one, especially myself, we are not perfect. And that's okay. However, um, when I did find out this piece of information about soul ties, I went ahead and Googled it. And what I found out, definitely had me shedding a few tears. I feel really, really bad for Generation Z. Soul ties, and a definition that the Google search gives. A soul tie is an intense spiritual connection between two people that results in a mutual learning experience. The concept of a soul tie has gained steam on TikTok and among the Gen Z population, who are increasingly looking outside the bounds of organized religion for answers to life's biggest questions. So, I am going to read into this. So, we have a Generation Z who is in such spiritual pain. I'm not saying physical, I'm not saying psychological, I'm not even saying emotional. However, we should look at that the spiritual condition of a person do affect their emotions, but they're in such spiritual pain that they're looking to each other for that spiritual connection. Under normal circumstances, I probably wouldn't be saying some of the stuff I'm going to say now. Or, yeah. But, with this piece of information, I've got to. I've got to. If your child is into this spiritual ties, and I don't know whose child is and whose child is or is not, I don't know. All I know is about my own life. But if your child seems to be into this, may I plead with you to get your family into a wonderful messianic synagogue, which teaches both love and law. And get plugged in to Judaism. Because here's what I can tell you through my own experience, being connected into Judaism, being connected into the olive tree known as Israel. It is spiritual nutrients for your soul. We need food for physical nutrition for our bodies. For me, Messianic Judaism, or as I also like to know it as Judaism with a Messianic perspective, gives me that nutrition for my soul. When God sees that, hey, there's a family here that used to work on Saturdays and now they're no longer working on Saturdays because they want to do what I want them to do. Yes, some money might be lost, but that's okay. What you gain other than money is much more valuable. Then you've got 6 days to work. Maybe you might have to change jobs or change careers or do something. But to have that spiritual connection with our Creator and doing things the way He wants us to do it in Judaism is such a wonderful spiritual connection. Yes, at first there is sacrifice. You got to sacrifice that you're not working on Saturdays. Yes, you've got to sacrifice that you ain't going to be eating pork bacon anymore. Yes, you've got to be sacrificed that you need to sacrifice that you are not going to be doing some of the things that you used to do. But through that sacrifice, you begin to really learn about real love and what it takes to have and to give real love. When people being fed the spiritual nutrients, let me rephrase this. When Yeshua Christ, when God starts feeding us the spiritual nutrients through His vessel, Messianic Judaism, when He starts feeding you those nutritions, when He gives you that food for the soul and you're being fed, my friends, it is the greatest thing in the world. And it really, really does. How should I say this? It really saddens me that Generation Z is trying to connect with other people on a spiritual level. when that truly does not exist. What truly exists is connecting with God the way that He meant for us to connect with God. And that is through the forgiveness of living Torah, Christ, to do as the written Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, tells us to do. Once the children, once you as a person are being fed these new spiritual nutrients, then you know what? It becomes the greatest blessing you've ever had. No matter your financial status, you will find that you are living a very blessed, loving, and caring life because you yourself become more loving, more caring. Listen, you can be the most compassionate, caring, loving person on the earth. And no one is going to do it perfectly. Even if you're doing it the way of the written Torah, it's not going to be perfect. But you know what? I seek to become a better person today than I was yesterday. And I'm praying that I'm a better person tomorrow than what I am today. It is time. People are spiritual hungry. And from what I'm able to gather about Generation Z or Gen Z for short, I'm finding out that they are desperately spiritually hungry. And I can tell you, when you go to a loving, caring, compassionate, messianic synagogue or messianic congregation, you will get fed those spiritual nutrients that you need. Yes, at first, when walking into a messianic synagogue or a messianic congregation, it will be a culture shock. It will. But let me tell you something. You will look at that culture shock as being the most loving thing that you could have ever went through. To go to God on His terms is the most wonderful thing that we as individuals can do for ourselves and for our families. And it's this. Even you know um, I was talking to my Rabbi Michael, and I was telling him about some of the changes that are going on. It's like I'm changing and I can't help it. He said one thing to me, and he is perfectly correct. He said, "You're having the law written on your heart." And when a person does that, when a person has the law written on their heart, they seek to become a better person. And no matter how, let's say, like an atheistic family, they can be very, very loving people. I've known atheists who were very loving, but it's a lot different than when you are being loving and receiving love because you're doing as written Torah is told you to do. That's love on a whole different understanding. When you receive those spiritual nutrients, when you see that God is working in your life, there is a peace and a love that's going to come to you that the world does not understand. Soul ties don't understand it. With all due love, respect, Hinduism doesn't understand it. Buddhism doesn't understand it. New Age doesn't understand it. You don't understand it until you say, God, I surrender all that I am to you. We're going to do it your way. You find His way and you do it. I promise you that will give you love and peace like you've never, ever known in your life. I'm promising you this. So if your children are getting into Buddhists or Hinduism, if you're or getting into soul ties, please, please, please get yourselves into a wonderful messianic synagogue or congregation. As much as I love my Christian brothers and sisters, Christianity cannot feed people like Messianic Judaism can. And I'm living proof. I'm a better person than what I was 2 years ago. I'm definitely a better person than what I was 10 years ago. I'm a lot better person than I was in 2015 or 2016. So here's the real deal. I can inform people. I can tell people how things have worked much better in my life. But you know what? I cannot make people do. I cannot. And I'm not going to try. I want to just say this one more time. There's no perfect parents. There are no perfect people. There's just people who want to do better today than they did yesterday. I love you all. God bless.